A little bit about the history in Kamloops. 2007, we signed something that's called the Climate Charter. It's an ideological document. It's not legally binding. It says, we in Kamloops believe that anthropogenic climate change is real. We think it's an emergency, and we're going to do everything we can to stop it. In 2008, the Green Communities Act came out, and it caused municipalities to start recording and reporting greenhouse gases. In 2010, under the former mayor, who RSVP'd, but I guess he hasn't had a chance to come in yet, it's Peter Millibar, we released a plan called Sustainable Kamloops, which closely mirrored the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We officially adopted those under Harper in 2015, and in 2019, the council mandated that Kamloops staff will follow the procedures for keeping emissions down, and we have now our Community Climate Action Plan in 2021. So how does this work? Well, the way the legislation works in Canada, well, in British Columbia, we have to have an official community plan. That's called the CAM plan. So every city, every municipality has this, and this sets out the general directions for how policy will be developed. And then we have other bylaws and plans that come underneath that, and as long as they line up with the official community plan, they're good to go. So we can't just consider the climate action plan, we have to consider all the plans because they have overlapping sections among them. For instance, the climate action plan might reference the transportation master plan and so on. If we zoom out a bit, we can see the TNRD, they have their own official community plans, they have their own zoning, and then we also have a bunch of legislation underneath the BC government. Greenhouse Gas Reduction Act, Zero EV Act, Water Sustainability Act. If we zoom out even further, we have the jurisdiction of the federal government, their pan-Canadian framework, the Sustainable Development Act, and we're there with 190 plus other countries that signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals. All these countries submit reports to the United Nations on their progress. Okay, supposedly it's all voluntary. Why is it important that we're talking about this here in Kamloops? It's because 40% or more, and this is from that document in 1994, it says here, municipalities are also the unit of government with primary responsibility for regulating the use of land. So if the United Nations has a plan to change the use of land, they have to have a buy-in from the municipalities. There's no other way to do it. If you want global top-down government, you must have a municipality that's on the program. So we're looking for a common language, a common framework, a common legal framework. So municipal and regional, that's why we need to talk about this. So let's talk about the Kamloops Climate Action Plan. Came out in 2021. It's broken down into 8 big moves. If I had to summarize it in one sentence, I'd say the main purpose is to cut CO2 emissions. It advocates ideas like smart growth, expensive zero carbon building, removing and converting existing roads and infrastructure and turning them into daycares. It actually says that. I don't understand how that's possible, but that's what it says in the plan. It opposes things like rural development and expanding vehicle infrastructure. This is what it looks like. The most impactful big moves is 1, 2, 3, and 4, which we'll focus on. And then I think everybody knows about number 5, which is about limiting methane. So now we're going to drive all our garbage to Princeton twice a week. So this is what it looks like. You see, if you kind of look over here, you can see it says 2007, we're going out to 2050. This is the target. The blue is the emissions from personal vehicles. This is industrial vehicles, and this is houses. So you see there's only really 2 places where the reductions are coming from. It's personal vehicles and personal homes. Okay? I think we're somewhere in the middle here, and we're expected to get to 0. So they're actually targeting for 0 emissions by 2050. And this is in line with what the British Columbia government is putting out as well. So this is where I got involved in this story. There was a flyer that went around town. A lot of people were talking about this, and rather than jump to conclusions, I actually went in and I spoke to people at the city. I went to see our mayor. He suggested I sit down with the sustainability development manager, who's unfortunately not here tonight. And I said, hey, this sounds pretty extreme, 80% reduction. Like obviously this is just, some pie in the sky, feel good stuff that we're not actually gonna do. Just like the Sustainable Kamloops plan. And he said, yeah, it's an ambitious plan, but we chose one that's actionable. We actually think we can get this done. I pushed back. I said, yeah, but it's 80%. This is going to be a major change. How are we going to pull this off? He said, yeah, it's going to be a tremendous challenge. I said, I know. I know that. How are you going to do it? Some of the technology doesn't exist yet. I said, I know. How are we going to do it? Then he said this. Only thing we've done similar as a society is our response to the Second World War and COVID. This is the guy who's responsible for the plan, knows the plan inside and out, runs the plan, manages the sustainability department in Kamloops. So obviously, if you take this document right here, the Climate Action Plan, and you turn to the first page, it's going to tell you that, right? It doesn't say anything about that. It only talks about benefits. Every single big move only talks about benefits. They don't talk about any negative effects on the economy, how it's going to change your life or anything. So they must have done some engagement because they're required to legislatively. Well, this came out during COVID. If you guys remember, during COVID, we were locked down. Nobody was allowed out of the house. 262 people attended a Zoom meeting, and there was 532 responses on a survey. I don't know if those 262 people are the same people that filled out the 532 responses. Could be the same person 532 times, but look how proud they are. There was 2,000 visitors to the website, guys. I get that on one of my websites in a day. Okay? That could have been people from all over the world, and they're actually putting that in the plan as community engagement. It's less than 1% of Kamloops proper, and if you include the outskirts of Kamloops, it's way less than a fraction of a percent.